Fascinating. This is Gabrielle Ruiz, and you are watching TrekCulture.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TrekCulture Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Ferrick, and I am joined by perhaps the busiest person working in Hollywood today, Jennifer Muro. How are you, first of all?
Hi, I am good, and I wish I was the busiest person working today. That's like, I feel like Tom Cruise would have a word with you. I don't know. He's doing Olympic things and doing crazy things.
I was going to say, I think he's still hanging off the side of a stadium somewhere, so like we'll catch up with him in a while. But I mean, honestly, everyone who's been watching and listening to this will be familiar with your work from Star Trek Prodigy, which we will get into now in a moment. But also, I mean, to anyone who hasn't yet, just have a gander at your IMDb page, and what a journey you've had.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been pretty wild. I think some things aren't even on IMDb yet because things take forever, to air, and then you're like, you finished it a year ago or you started 2 years ago, and but thank you. Yes, I think things are showing up now finally, especially now that Prodigy's out, so that has helped. So yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. And you know what? In a way, to turn your thanks back on yourself, thank you for everything that you have done, particularly, yes, in terms of Star Trek Prodigy. I mean, we are still riding the high of it here. I think it's out now about a month and a half. We're still doing deep dives. I know Twitter is still doing deep dives. I don't think Jorg Hillebrand has slept in the last month and a half. It's just
he's doing Touch of Grey right now today. So I'm just answering back and forth today, and I'm glad. That's we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to interact and go, oh my God, I did this thing and I'm super proud of it, which is amazing. I can do that with you guys.
Well, that is awesome. I guess I have a lovely, really small question for you is, how'd you do it all?
Oh, just time, space, thought.
Perfect. Yeah.
Like you do. It took a lot of effort. It took me being a fan for many years, and me being teamed up with Aaron Walke helped too, because we're both like this in the writer's room, and everyone's like, okay, you're done now. And so that really helped a lot. And the brothers also being very open to pitches and not crazy rewrites where like your stuff isn't on the page, because it is, and if something works. And then we also even all of the episodes, I think we all kind of did punch-ups together. Once it was like pretty locked, we'd still do a pass and go, okay, best joke wins here and there, which was great too. So that's how we did it. Being big, huge fans. Me having a dream a year or two earlier, like an actual physical dream at nighttime about a ship called the Infinity, and then begging the brothers, and then them going, fine, we'll do the Infinity, and Will, I've always been a Wesley Crusher person, and I thought we got to get Will on this thing. This would be fantastic. And so that's how it all happened. It was a blancmange of stuff that came together well, and also loving all the technical details, and also like a lot of theoretical physics. Big fan of that. So that's why this season, definitely with all of us combined, I'm sure it kind of went that direction. Aaron's no slouch either.
I mean, you're so right there. We've had a few chats with Aaron on the channel. I mean, he can't go 5 seconds without betraying himself as a massive Trekkie, which is wonderful for us. And also has name dropped yourself as being a massive Trekkie as well, which I'm sure there must be that, if you like, challenge of, because you've got all of this Trek knowledge and all of this Trek excitement, and so much of it is here in the season, and yet there's still probably so much more. You're like, oh, I've got to do this, and I've got to do that, and I don't have room for that, and that needs to go in, and half of the, or is it as much as half the time is it, we'll have to say no to this one, having already done things like bringing Wesley Crusher back.
Yeah, I think, oh my God, we had a blue sky board. There's so many things sitting there that were never touched, unfortunately. I'm sure there was a bunch of Jankum stuff, because Jankum didn't get tons this season because so much was going on. But I'm trying to remember. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty plenty that we didn't touch yet and wish we could have done. But I think we made it as cohesive as possible. And luckily we had 20 episodes, but we had so many characters to service. And also kind of complete Gwyn story, and also the Chakotay story, and also, you know, even Dal, there would probably be a few more Dal detailed stuff, but yeah, I think it was pretty cohesive or coherent, or, you know, consecutive. I think it worked.
I think so, actually. I think it was, I think in an interview, Ellie said quite recently as well that, and I agree, it is one of the tightest seasons, I think, that we've seen in a long time. And when you've got 20 episodes and as many moving parts as that, and as many Trekkies freeze framing and going through everything, to have that is, I mean, from behalf of the fans, thank you very much. From behalf of the Cetacean Observations, thanks, because that's been good fun. But then for you, kind of going back a bit, so I know you've been a Trekkie forever, but how, in terms of your relationship with the other Prodigy, you know, producers, writers, everything, how did that begin? You know, how did you all find each other?
I think I was working on Vox Machina at the time for Critical Role, and that was season 1 for Amazon. And I think, I mean, I knew Star Trek was happening. Season 1, I think I was put up for season 1, but I think it was the room was full at the time. I'm trying to remember. And we always wanted to work together. And so I had a meeting set with the brothers. And then I just coincidentally, I think a week or two earlier, was at a scoring session for Michael Giacchino on Spider-Man Homecoming, maybe? I think it was. And I show up and there's these two guys there and we introduce each other and we're like, I think I have a meeting with you next week. And then we literally went, do you want to just do the meeting now? So we did we just went in another room and had a meeting during Michael Giacchino's score of Spider-Man Homecoming. So that was when we reconnected. So, and we got along great. And I'm trying to remember if that was the season before. It might have been the season before. And then I think it all aligned where I was done and they were done, and the timing worked out perfectly for spring. I think it was it 21? Spring of 21? God, the years do fly. But that's how that began, was with the brothers, and we just both happened to be friends with Michael, but we weren't introduced because of him. It just was, you know, just a coincidence, and you gotta love that, you know, synchronicity in the universe knows what it's doing sometimes.
From your point of view, like, when, you know, was the last T crossed and the last I dotted for season 2?
It was probably spring 22. 22? It was spring 22, March, end of March 22. I mean, then we'd go on, and Aaron was on a little bit longer because then literally I was kind of overlapping, and so I started maybe a couple of weeks late onto Stranger Things. So that was at that time, but Aaron stayed on and made, you know, and went through animatics and made sure things were like correct. And if things were like, oh my God, that's not, you know, continuity is always helpful with that. But in terms of on the page for the group, I think it was 22.
22.
Because I was on Stranger Things thereafter, so that's how I kind of know it's been my life for a long time up until just recently. So
that's good. In a way, that's quite funny that, you know, just the nature of this amazing career. It's like, okay, so right, what was happening in life that way? Well, that was Stranger Things. Okay, so that means it was between these dates. You know, we'd Secret Invasion before that, so that's these dates. You know,
and that was during Star Trek.
And that was how do you balance the two, or even more than one project? I took a small hiatus, and I was very lucky to do that. We got permission from everybody, and everything was, you know, above board on the up and up, and everyone's like, as long as you know, everyone's in first position or whatever the position was correctly, and we're not losing any money, and you know, and everything's getting done. And it did. I think it's because Secret Invasion was such a small season. So number one, small season, and also it wasn't a crazy long writer's room. I got to take that break, but I was supposed to write episode, I think 111,
and I didn't get to. So Aaron and Alex Hansen took over for that, and I really appreciate that. Although that would have been so fun to write. I think that was 111. 110 was Deandra, I think, and 111 I think was Alex and Aaron, and I really appreciate that because but that's the one bummer. But anyway, how do I balance that? It was crazy time. It was a crazy time.
And I mean, I suppose this is 2022, so we're not in lockdown at this point. I mean, does this involve jumping in the car an awful lot? Like, would you have days where you're doing both? Would it be like, no, this week is Marvel, next week is Prodigy, or is it as segmented as that?
It was because it was during the pandemic. I mean, it was still 21. I mean, it wasn't at the beginning of it, but everything was still remote. Okay. So it would have been nutty. I can't even imagine. Well, it all depends on where the Marvel room would have been, but it would have been definitely a lot more difficult. But because of the timing, it was a lot of just jumping back and forth. But actually, there was a chunk where I really did get to concentrate on Marvel. So, but I was back before you know it, and you know we were sort of ahead. It's just that one episode I kind of wish it was, darn, I could have done the thing, but they did an amazing job and it turned out great. So, I mean, it all worked out in the end. But yeah, so it is weird to be like, well, I was on Marvel and then it was like, well, Star Wars was a long time ago now. And like, so I've been so grateful to have all these big IPs to bounce around. And I mean, I don't know, it's crazy. It's like, this has got to be I'm in some weird simulation or dream sequence or something. I don't know, but I'll take it.
Can I ask about your time with Stranger Things? Because, I mean, this is something that you developed. I mean, you were the head writer on this. I mean, how different is this from, say, other writers' rooms that you've been on, even like when you've produced things as well?
The difference is on big IPs like this is there's a lot of eyes. There's a lot of production companies involved. You know, the Duffers team is involved. You know, Sean Levy's team is involved. Netflix is involved. You know, the animation house is involved. There's so many moving parts and producers on it. And, you know, there's a certain mandate and there is a lot of canon as well, but I'm very good at that because I've been doing that a very, very long time, which also helps. And it was me and the runner for a long time in the EP, although we have an amazing Netflix creative team who actually are creatives and give good notes and have good input. So that was very helpful as well. And then eventually, once everything was developed and we got going, we started being able to bring on writers. It was a little longer than I would have liked. I would have liked to help a little earlier on, but you know, it's just part of the development process, and it all worked out in the end, and it's going along.
Like,
yeah,
you know, it sounds exhaustively exciting. It sounds like, you know, it's something that's kind of, you could, what is it, you know, ignite the midnight petroleum.
Yes. The etymology of that idiom, I don't know where that begins. Let's see. Yeah, it's terrifying sometimes, and it's also surreal and trippy, going, oh my God, like, how is this even happening? So it's a lot of pressure, but it's cool and awesome, and it's also stuff I love. It's not like, oh, it's big, yay, I get to do a big thing. It's stuff I love. It's all everything. Like, I mean, you know, even Vox Machina, it was basically, you know, is that D&D fantasy world, which I played when I was a teenager and read Dragonlance, and I loved that stuff. And then Star Trek is obviously Dream One, and Star Wars is also since I was a teenager. And Stranger Things, I loved when it came out because I'm an 80s girl and I lived through that. And I was young, but I still lived through that. And I just I love that. I love the Stranger Things world in general. So yeah, these are just, you know, I'm a fan of all this stuff. So I'm very lucky to, you know, be in those worlds.
It's the one thing I consistently hear about animation is that you start and you're late. You know, it's like, no, we needed this, yes, you know. And yet then the actual animation process can take so long. And it's like, how do those things marry up? You know what I mean? It's like,
great. Marry up. Well, I mean, I think that's why there's so much rush because then once you get into that part of the process, it does take so long. And so it's because of the way animation works that there are certain places where you can't rush certain things, and some things you can. Rush isn't the right word. It's just that there's a certain schedule for stuff. I think once again, it's also about budget and how many writers you have and how long the rooms are and how much help and everything else. So there could be more time and people and money, but look, once again, that's what we're fighting for in TAG. So it's always animation writers have said we're always living either in the very far past or you're in the future, and it's very few times that you're right doing what you're doing, because animation is such an interesting process that's very different. In terms of the animation and how all that works. Writing, it's the same. And I know that is because I had fired one of my friends on Stranger Things, and he's live action writer, and he's wonderful. And he's like, this is hard. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. And he's been on big CW shows and other stuff. And it's like, yeah, it is. And so, it was nice to not feel crazy. Like this is not easy, right? And it's nice to have confirmation to go, no, you're not crazy, Jen. Not for this reason anyway. Maybe other reasons, but not for this.
Exactly. Yeah. Please don't get me wrong. There is craziness there. Just for different things.
For different things, yeah. But this one's not.
In the Prodigy writers' room, obviously, I know there's a lot of animation experience there, and with writers as well. Was there a bit of a mix of live action and animation? Were they primarily animation writers? What was your experience in the room?
I think it was primarily animation writers. The brothers obviously have experience in both. I think Deandra came from she was PA or writer's assistant on the original Stranger Things live action writers room. So she she was in that room, and so it was a mix, but I think it's probably a larger percentage animation versus live action. It was I don't know what the percentage exactly would have been, but yeah, I'd say primarily animation.
So did all the animation writers bully the other ones?
This is Star Trek. We don't bully. There's no bullying in Star Trek. Not in our room anyway. We didn't have a lot of arguments. I mean, we fought for things, not fought with each other, which is really interesting, because I've been in rooms where there is like just really crazy differences of opinion, but it was more like, it was just and I think I said this on the panel on Sunday at Star Trek Las Vegas, it was the most collaborative experience I've ever had, and the most I've felt the most heard before. Not that I haven't in other rooms. This was just beyond, and Star Trek. That's why I'm like, oh my gosh, if I could do anything again, maybe Star Trek, hands down. Now, is every Star Trek going to be the same? Every show going to be that same experience? Probably not. But all I know is I love that world, and it's just a place I love to be in. And it tends to be a positive experience from what some of the other writers I have talked to before. So it's nice to know, which is great.
It is, because I mean, I suppose, you are a Trekkie, as we are Trekkies. We never want to hear that it was anything less than fun.
Right.
Even there can be fun stress, even, we can, I say we as if I'm in the room. I'm not. One day, maybe. But, we can allow some fun stress as long as there's fun and enjoyment as part of it.
Yes.
And I suppose, I mean, you're probably sick to death answering this question as well. When the news came in about, all of the, suddenly it's not streaming anymore and season 2 is up in the air, I suppose, what is the initial reaction, and then how long does that initial feeling sit before we start to hear about shopping out to other places?
Right. That's like, oh, great. An algorithm decided to pick us randomly. And I don't know that for a fact, but it feels like that's what happened. They're like, let's grab a few things from the algorithm and see what's not worth it or doing blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, my first thought was, oh, they picked the wrong show. You picked a Star Trek show to do this too? That was my reaction, was like, that was a mistake. And it was, and here we are right now, because I just think that was a random thing. I think there wasn't a lot of thought behind it. I think it was it was like such a corporate decision that wasn't thought out. I just don't think it was. And also write-offs had been going on at that point from other studios and other stuff. And so I was surprised, but also we were done. And I think we had hope quite early on that it would, I had hope because I knew we were so done. We had so much stuff in the can that it'd be like silly. It's just a waste of money because it can be licensed. I was like, because it's Star Trek, I knew they could probably make money licensing it. So it might be worth a couple of bucks to them to do that. So I had hope early on, but that's just my business brain thinking that. So it could have easily not. And no one would have seen what we did and how hard we worked. And my Wesley dreams would have been finished. So luckily that didn't happen. But yeah, we had a long text thread constantly of going, okay, what's happening? What's going on? And we're just all very supportive about it. But it worked out, thank God.
I mean, thank God is the right way to say it, because I mean, there's so much in season 2 which is just, it's brilliant. I mean, half the fun of the last month and a half I've been discussing all of how he's crammed so much into it. But Wesley's one of the big ones. I mean, it's hard. I mean, I wouldn't say you's topped it. I'm trying to think. There are other equally big things, but I mean, Wesley is a big thing, and you did it. You brought him back. It's your fault. I mean, well done, you. But
it's a dream come true, because it's weird because and the brothers, but everyone has been so kind, saying this was a Jen thing, and I do appreciate that, because it's so funny, because you always worry about like, it's not about taking credit. I always feel like if you've done something where like I brought this to the table, you should embrace it. That doesn't mean I made it happen. It's like we all made it happen. It might have been my idea or brought something to the table, and we all made it happen. So I think it's okay to be proud of things you've contributed and still be knowing it's a group effort. So that's my lesson out there for you guys out there. It's okay to be, it's not like I'm taking credit for stuff. I think it's okay to be proud of your contributions. And that is definitely one of them. So, which is wonderful. And it's so great to hear that most people didn't see it coming at all. I'm pretty sure.
Now it's like, oh, of course, Prodigy, everything. I mean, how did you know? Completely took me by surprise.
Okay, great. Because I think early on it was, it just made sense. He is a child prodigy. They literally said the word prodigy. I think it was season 2, when I think it's when the Traveler came in. I think it was even Beverly was saying like he's a prodigy like Mozart or something like that. And so it made absolute sense. And also because of all the wormhole stuff and all the time stuff. And then it's so weird because I had that. And then on top of it, I had this other infinity thing, and it just kind of all worked out. And also I love TNG so much. So we got to pull. So the band, I had pitched let's use the phase discriminators like they did in, I think it was Timescape.
Timescape.
Yeah, and 100%. I was like, that's a perfect way to do that. So we pulled from stuff, and Aaron definitely backed up these ideas, and also he had a million of his own, obviously, and we also collaborated on a bunch of stuff. But he definitely had my back on stuff where maybe the brothers were like, but they're also great too. They know what they're doing. They're no slouches either. We all banded together on that. So that's what I mean by there was so much that it's so weird even watching it or hearing it, or from looking down, I hear infinity, or just them, like the actors saying, like Kate saying that. It's just so weird to me because I lived with it in my head for so long that it's just real and it's on the screen. And that doesn't always happen. And that's why it's amazing that it all came together. Very, very lucky.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for everything. I hear you, get back to work. I can't wait. It'd be amazing, but also kind of love that you're having a bit of time off as well.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much. And it's also nice to be able to talk to you guys about it and actually enjoy, instead of working for 12 hours and I can't even interact with you guys or talk about the episodes or enjoy it. And I've been really enjoying it. So Touch of Grey is being spoken about today. So after I'm done with you, I will go and see what's going on over there. So it's been lovely. So thank you. Yes, I do appreciate that. Thanks.
You are a star, and we can't wait to see what comes next.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this abbreviated version of this podcast. Now, if you go to our audio platforms, you will get the full version of this podcast with this guest. So we really, really appreciate you subscribing to that, and you're just awesome and wonderful. Thank you so much.